Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Eleni Meletiadou and I'm a course director at the Guildhall School of Business and Law. I work for London Metropolitan University and I'm very pleased that I will be able to present a study I conducted with my research team. In terms of this study, we explored lectures, inclusive formative assessment literacy in an app context. Okay, this project had two funders. It received external funding from BALEAP, the Global Forum for English as academic in English for academic purposes professionals, almost £5,000, and then another £6,000, almost £6,000 from London Metropolitan University. As you can see, I had a team, a diverse team. We collected data together. We just completed the data collection procedure, and we are currently analyzing our findings. But I will be happy to present some preliminary findings right now, and hopefully next year I will present the whole picture. So as you can see, there are a number of lecturers from London Metropolitan University that participated in this study, but there are also colleagues from other universities in the UK, like King's College London, University of Lincoln, University in Nottingham, and so on, but also from other universities in Europe, we had a university from Albania, one from Turkey, and another one from Malta. I would like to express my gratitude to this research team that worked really hard for almost 6 months so that we were able to collect our data. So let me provide the background to this study. Okay, so the literature indicates that most undergraduate learners face considerable challenges with various academic skills, for example, writing, and either fail in exams or produce written assignments of poor quality. So the assessment methods currently used in higher education do not seem to address diverse students' needs and help them improve valuable academic skills, for example, writing. These skills are necessary if they want to graduate and ensure a career-enhancing position in the future. Moreover, research indicates that very few studies, if any, have explored inclusive formative assessment practices of English for academic purposes in higher education. A current study I conducted at London Metropolitan University, and in which I implemented the use of inclusive formative assessment practices with level 4 students at London Metropolitan University, with the aim of improving undergraduate students' writing performance, had a statistically significant impact on their writing performance in only one academic semester. Taking that into consideration, I decided to conduct this study to explore lectures inclusive formative assessment practices in higher education. So as English for academic purposes is considered a distinct area of English language teaching, it needs different and distinctive methods for teaching and assessment, and establishes different standards of identity and responsibilities. So taking the literature into account, multidimensional expertise, skills, and abilities are required to teach and assess EAP, and the insufficiency of ELT qualifications for the successful fulfillment of EAP roles is evident. So EAP lecturers need different types of abilities and knowledge, and this study wishes to explore their needs in terms of inclusive formative assessment literacy, especially in terms of promoting inclusion for linguistically diverse learners, which is the norm in higher education lately. So the concept of assessment literacy has begun to develop very recently. There are various definitions. For example, Fulcher defined assessment literacy as lecturers' acquaintance with academic knowledge, useful skills, and understanding of related principles and procedures in assessment. There are various others definitions in the literature, but I'm not gonna expand on these. I would like to move on and highlight the fact that along with the ARP programs, ARP assessment practices, especially those that promote inclusion and social justice, are of high significance as they trigger learners' knowledge specifically and need to be managed according to the knowledge and skills of the practitioners. So, according to DeLuca and Johnson, for example, although more attention has been paid to EAP teaching, which has inspired EAP specialists, EAP inclusive formative assessment is not rich enough and requires researchers to fill the gap. So, the literature needs more studies to conceptualize both EAP inclusive formative assessment and EAP lecturers inclusive formative assessment literacy in order to add to the quality of EAP learning. So the internationalization of higher education worldwide has broadened student diversity in higher education institutions in recent years. However, it translates into a challenge in order to ensure equity and inclusion for all students to facilitate maximum personal, social, and academic growth. So, in terms of inclusive assessment, for example, Waterfield and West define it as a fair way of assessing for learning that achieves the objective of measuring the learning outcomes of a course and awarding grades while recognizing student diversity and different learning styles. So, in higher education, educators can plan and implement a variety of techniques to conduct assessments that are meaningful, authentic, and informative of a wider range of student skills. The current study aimed to explore their current practices along with their challenges and attitude and support them in their efforts to promote equity and fairness by valuing individual differences in students' capabilities and skills. This in turn makes education relevant and engaging for all students. Talk now about the research method. So we use a mixed methods research design. This was a multiple case study. Sampling, we use snowball sampling depending on the access that we had, and we collected 95 interviews from lecturers in higher education that are doing up that is that are teaching English for academic purposes, 75 online surveys, 45 observations, and this from 20 universities in the UK and in Europe. We also used lengthy semi-structured online interviews and we conducted some observations, not as many as interviews, but okay, we are happy that we managed to do that. So we used SPSS and thematic content analysis up to now, and of course, we are still analyzing the findings. So we need 2 or 3 months to complete the analysis. And let me show you now the research. Let me share with you the research questions of the study. So we aim to explore to what extent EAP lecturers are literate in terms of inclusive formative assessment, what inclusive formative assessment practices lecturers use in higher education in terms of EAP, and what are EAP lecturers' needs in terms of inclusive formative assessment literacy. So let's have a look here at the preliminary findings. You can see some of the questions. This was quite a lengthy questionnaire. Please take into consideration that when you see orange, that means lecturers who responded had were moderately knowledgeable. When you see red, they were slightly knowledgeable. When you see green, they were very knowledgeable. So you can see when we ask, for example, lecturers if they could accommodate students with disabilities or other learning impairments, you can see that most of them were moderately knowledgeable about how to support these students. And this is the case in higher education. And this also indicates the need for more training. When we asked them when we asked them whether they could accommodate international students, they seemed a bit more knowledgeable. But again, you can see a high percentage of lecturers that did not exactly know how to support them. And take into consideration that right now we have so many international students in most universities in the UK, that seems like a quite significant gap. You can see when we ask them also what kind of training they usually receive, you can see that most of them rely on training by their institution. Okay, so it is surprising that they don't really try to attend the training sessions outside their institution. Training provided by specialized instructors. Also, very few of them attend webinars, or use some other kind of self-training courses. Moving on finally to the issue of age, class, gender, nationality, and religion. You can see also that when lecturers are asked to address cultural differences in students, again, they cannot really address these differences in their learners and provide sufficient support. Have a look at some more of the findings from the online survey. So you can see when we asked the lecturers whether they could use continuous formative assessment at the level of a teaching unit, you can see that um, although we had some of them that were moderately knowledgeable, many of them indicated that they were very knowledgeable. Of course, all these findings, we are going to triangulate them with the interviews, but also with the observation, because there's one thing claiming that you are knowledgeable, and sometimes in reality, the situation is quite different. Also, you can see that lecturers were quite confident with using portfolio-based assessment, as well as peer and self-assessment. Also, they claimed in the survey. Okay. But however, we can see a high percentage of lecturers who did not really know how to support students and make their assessment more culturally appropriate. And moreover, you can see that the majority of lecturers, when we talk about feedback, they only rely on written comments. Have a look now at some of what the lecturer said during the interviews. You have a look at the first comment. I don't think that the assessment necessarily took into consideration the student's cultural background. And yes, the issue of culture is something that lecturers seem not very confident to address, and they cannot possibly support students coming from different cultural backgrounds. So I think there is a need there for training. Moreover, if you have a look at the second comment, students are not really involved in the review and design of assessment. So not involving students in the design of the assessment means that we are excluding them. Also, this also explains why students are quite disengaged in terms of assessment in higher education. If we have a look at this third comment, you can see that one of the lecturers indicated that he would not say that the student's voice is engaged in his or her assessment practices. He reveals that everything in his or her practice is institutionalized. And this is something that we need, higher education institutions need to reflect on, how they can provide some kind of freedom to lecturers to adapt their practices to the needs of their learners. Also, we can see that one of them says that unfortunately our education system since high school till now is quite cookie cutter kind of thing. So you see, one size fits all. This is the wrong approach, and something needs to be done about it. Finally, one of them indicates that it's his belief or it's his or her belief that students who are motivated will remain motivated. This was quite a surprising finding. Okay, so whatever is done is done. We don't care about students that are weak. We don't care about students that are frustrated, and we don't reach out to support them. This is not what we are supposed to do as lecturers. Okay, now, of course, there are limitations. I would like to see the long-term effects of using inclusive formative assessment practices. I would like to see what lecturers think in postgraduate studies. Some of them do include a app that is teaching English as an for academic practice. I would like to see that, and of course, I would like to see more universities involved. This is a sample from only 20 universities. So, what are the implications now for research and the practice? So, this project really intended to explore AAP lectures, inclusive formative assessment practice, and help future researchers train colleagues who want to experiment and implement inclusive formative assessment practices to improve their students' academic skills and enhance their motivation. The ultimate aim was to have a significant impact on diverse learners' learning and motivation. And more specifically, this study wished to enhance their academic skills, improving their academic performance by promoting inclusive formative assessment practices. So, of course, as I told you, this is the study, the analysis of the findings is not complete. When this is complete, this is expected to help app lecturers explore and reflect on their current inclusive formative assessment practices and beliefs and realize that they possibly need to improve them to help their students enhance their academic performance. So the study basically intended to explore whether the system of education which places hidden weight on summative tests overshadows EAP lecturers' full potential of assessment. Hopefully, when we analyze all findings, we will be able to explore whether the existing gap in inclusive formative assessment practices literacy can be attributed to the social, cultural, and political norms and the educational context of the UK. So, the findings of this study will hopefully broaden our understanding of the importance of EAP, inclusive formative assessment practices, assessment literacy, and the factors which affect them. After all, we have to come to realize that inclusive formative assessment literacy is an indispensable part of education in general and EAP education in particular. Secondly, also it is a pressing need for education policymakers, curriculum developers, syllabus designers, and material writers to understand the problems in education, especially as regards inclusive formative assessment, and to take practical measures to obviate the problems by avoiding unilateral, top-down, managerialistic decisions and action. That is, they are recommended to incorporate the voices of the end users, that is, students and lecturers, through conducting systematic needs analysis programs to especially recognize EAP lecturers' lacks as as far as inclusive formative assessment literacy is concerned. And then they will be able to remedy them by holding systematic pre-service and in-service training courses on inclusive formative assessment literacy. This can be a highly significant predictor of the app lecturers' inclusive formative assessment literacy. Let us keep in consideration that the prerequisite for the implementation of IFAB partially goes to the policymakers, curriculum developers, and managers. These should, for instance, devote more time to app education, allow lecturers to divide crowded classes into smaller groups, hold inclusive formative assessment training courses. In fact, a reform of EAP education and especially inclusive formative assessment policies, curricula, syllabi, programs, and materials with more focus on innovative and alternative forms of inclusive formative assessment practices for both pre-service and in-service lecturers is deemed essential. This might also finally lead to more inclusive formative assessment literate EAP lecturers. So this study, hopefully when we analyze our findings, will help us design a new inclusive formative assessment literacy inventory, especially designed for EAP lecturers to examine the extent to which EAP lecturers are assessment literate in terms of IFAB. Finally, the study will hopefully indicate the need for such professional development and assessment courses as seminars, webinars, workshops, which can be held to promote pre-service and in-service teachers inclusive formative assessment literacy. So at this point, I would like to thank you for your attention. I look forward to analyzing all our findings and coming back to you hopefully next year to offer more specific recommendation. Thank you so much for your attention. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.